Hi, everyone, and welcome to another interview with me, your host, Plim. Today, I have a group interview. That's exciting, confusing, terrifying, maybe. I'm here with the crew of the upcoming novella collection that's coming out called Split Scream Volume 1. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone. We have Alex Ebenstein. Alex Ebenstein is a maker of maps by day, writer of horror fiction by night. He lives with his family in Michigan and has stories published by the Other Stories podcast, Cemetery Gates Media, and others. He's also the founder of Dreadstone Press, and he's here as in the editor press position for this interview. So hi, Alex.
Hello.
Next, we have Carson Winter, who I've actually interviewed before. He is an author, punker, and raw nerve. His work has been featured in Apex, Visterion, and the No Sleep podcast. Recently, he was proud to have his novelette, I Am Not to Be Replaced in Bloodlines, 4 Tales of Familiar Fear, which is actually where I interviewed him and his fellow writers. And his novella Reunion Special is available still now. He hasn't updated his bio, as he admitted. However, he did drop the S from his last name. Hi, Carson.
I'm happy to be here.
That's a shout out to the long-term Plim fans who've seen that previous interview where I said his last name wrong the whole time.
The OGs.
And then next we have Scott J. Moses. He is an author of Non-Practicing Cultist and editor of What One Wouldn't Do, which I actually received an ARC of. You can check out that review on my blog. A member of the Horror Writers Association. His work has appeared in various anthologies and journals. He is Japanese American and lives in Baltimore. His debut novella, Our Unique Affliction, is forthcoming from Dark Lit Press in early 2023. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you very much, and just an honor to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for all setting some time out today to let me question you. So let's just head into general writing, since we're all involved in the industry in different ways. So going around, we'll start with Carson. What is your writing process like?
I think the process for me is always just to do it. I'm a pantser. I'm not big into planning. I like to feel that kind of immediate magic of just putting words on a page and kind of letting the imagination just unravel a story. I think the downside of that process is that editing can be, close to a catastrophe sometimes. But I think over the years, practicing at that kind of pantsing style, I've gotten pretty decent at it, but I feel like I definitely took the hard way as far as a process goes. But as for me, it's all about just, following those kind of flights of fancies that I think we have a tendency to dismiss, those little absurdities we think about during the middle of the day, and then we let go of those daydreams and seriously consider them, like give those daydreams weight and then be like, okay, this is a dumb what if, but like put it on a page, do it, see what's up with it.
So then when it comes to longer works like the novelettes and the novellas, you still just pants the whole thing? Even though
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's wild.
Yeah, 100%.
So I recently got into writing novellas, and I am a pantser when it comes to short fiction, but if I don't kind of write down basic ideas of my novella, I find I flounder. So I'm a little jealous because I hate outlining.
Yeah, this one actually came together really easily. I wrote The Guts of Myth actually during NaNoWriMo as just I think I was trying to do just short stories. I was banging out short stories for the month until I got to 50K words or whatever. And I had an idea in my head forever, what about if there was a cosmic horror heist story or something? And I was
hey, save that for the other question.
Okay. Okay.
Don't jump ahead here, Carson, come on.
But yeah, I basically just sprinted through the whole thing, just kind of having fun with it, telling myself the story.
I love that. Well then, Scott, how about you?
Well, honestly, most of my writing is done, oddly enough, away from the computer. The Notes app is a big friend of mine. I find I'll get bits of dialogue or just a weird premise, or like Carson said, like what just a random what if, and I'll just jot it down in notes. So when I actually sit down, I do consider myself a plotter. Like much respect to the Panther crowd, but I can't, I don't understand it. Like it just isn't for me. I can't do it. But I like to think like I have like a point A and a point B, and I can kind of just make up how those connect. But yeah, so most of the story is kind of written in just little bursts of random notes, and then I just kind of put it all together and consider that a first draft.
So then for like the structure of your notes, are you like, you just write, you kind of journal it? Are you like one of those spider webbers? Do you like plot it out like a conspiracy theorist on like a pin board? Do you have mood boards and like Pinterest?
Not quite. Maybe that may be better than what I do. Essentially, it's like if you just loaded a shotgun with confetti and just shot it at the wall, and then eventually I go back and I'm like, okay, this is like plot oriented, and this
So
is like
conspiracy
dialogue.
theorist, got it.
Maybe in like the most like psychotic way, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it makes any sense, but it works for me.
That's fair. And now Alex, you were the one who published these guys, but you also do your own writing. So what's your process like?
A little bit of both, kind of what the two said. I consider myself a pantser, but when I get into longer works, I tend to do that until I am stuck, and then I go back and kind of outline what I have and keep the outline going if I can, and then work off that. But yeah, whatever works at the time. It's different for everyone. I'd say at the base level, I try to get like checkpoints, have a general idea of the very, very basic premise, maybe a couple checkpoints to hit along the way, and then just kind of see where it goes.
So we have the perfect team here. We have a 100% pantser, 100% planner, and a 50-50. Beautiful.
Compensation, right?
I also just have to call out, like, each of you has like bookcases in the back, and that makes me feel so left out. If it wasn't blurred, you'd just see like my work computer. So it's not as fun. Let's see. Okay, so going around again, but we're gonna mix up the order just to confuse you all.
Perfect.
So
Awesome.
what do you think makes a good horror story? Since, I mean, we're all like horror lovers, obviously, or else we wouldn't be here. So there has to be something you feel makes a good horror story, or opposite, you could share what you think kind of breaks a story for you. So Scott?
Honestly, I would honestly just say there just has to be an empathy there. Like just horror is like a good vehicle to just really look at those things, like, just as humans that we will never quite know, and maybe that we would otherwise shove away, like those, like the what ifs Carson mentioned earlier, but maybe the ones that we don't necessarily want to think about. Horror is like just looking at those questions through a lens of fiction. You can stare right at it without staring right at it, if that makes any sense. And I just think we all have the same questions at the end of the day, and it's a good way to just commiserate on the unknown and the dark things that can happen that you don't necessarily obviously want to happen, but I don't know, just embracing uncertainty together, I guess, in a fun way.
No, that's fair. How about you, Alex?
I agree with the empathy aspect. I don't think there's so many different kinds of horror. So I don't like to put, a single label on anything. But a really good horror story, to me, you feel that empathy. I think that's really, really big. More specifically, the types of horror that I like is usually something that's weird, something that, like the sweet spot for me is when an element is introduced that doesn't make any sense, but it kind of fits, and you're just willing to go along with it. Mm-hmm. Without trying to over-explain. I think sometimes when we over-explain the weird, it kind of takes away a little bit of the magic.
No, I completely agree. I mean, realistically, in the real world, you're not going to find an answer for everything, and that's kind of what makes it scary. And last but not least, Carson, tell us your secrets.
For me, I think really what's at the heart of good horror, and I think, good horror can mean a lot of different things, and I wouldn't want to invalidate anyone else's horror. But for me, what I like is I like a confrontational distortion at the center of the story. I like the idea of a horror story kind of pushing your face in something you don't want to acknowledge, kind of, um, probing at those things we'd rather deny, things we push out of our lives, while also kind of taking everyday concepts and applying like absurdity to them, weirding them out to a point where they kind of highlight the strangeness of the regular world. I think Brian Ebenstein does that really well, where like a simple minimalist back and forth conversation that, the kind we have every day is depicted so oddly that it makes you question those conversations you have every day.
Amen.
So then what advice would you give to writers, either new or aspiring, starting with Alex? Is there a piece of advice you wish you had received early on?
Yeah, I think I received this advice fairly early on, but I should have taken it to heart a little bit sooner. And that's finding some good beta readers, beta buddies, invaluable. A group or a few other writer friends who are willing to look at your work and give you good feedback and critical feedback, and not just read it and tell you it's great. It's immeasurable, the benefit you get from that, compared to just sending it to a friend who doesn't really know and just kind of wants to read it and will tell you nice things. The beta readers, and I've got a few that, boy, I need them, and it makes my writing better for sure.
Carson?
Yeah, no, I think that's that's it right there, essentially. I feel like it took me a long time to get to the point where I could start selling stories. I think I really started taking writing really seriously when I was like 24, 25, and it probably took me a good 4 or 5 years before I actually sold anything of note. And I think the biggest reason for that was that I did not have a community around me. I think finding that writing community, finding other people who are familiar with the genre, who are also doing the same thing, they can totally open up your world to your own writing and get you to where you want to be a lot faster. I think one of my like big level up moments I remember as like a younger writer was when I started soliciting paid edits from authors like Cody Goodfellow, Nicole Cushing, whoever was like offering them out, and just, soaking up their edits, trying to see what they saw. And it was a huge experience for me. It was really formative, and I recommend that to every new writer, is to seek out the writers you admire and see if they have paid editing services, but also seek out that community. And of course, read the genre widely and outside the genre. I mean, of course, read books.
I mean, what, you have to read to write, Carson?
I don't like the fact that it makes me a nerd, but it is useful.
And Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything said thus far. Like, outside eyes are quite literally everything. Like, you just get so close to it, you can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. But what I would add is just some things that took me a little while to learn. But just in writing in general, you just have to be honest. Just period. I think a reader can tell if you're pulling your punches, and if you're concerned about what someone might think about it. I think it bleeds through in a negative way. So definitely be honest, I would say. And then I would also say, which is something that was on and off for myself and probably everyone here, but just don't compare yourself to others, because it's doing you no good. It's just a way to get into a deep dark hole for no reason whatsoever. And I guess that, yeah, that's what I would say.
I actually that's like a huge point too, is the honesty, authenticity thing. And I think that's so much of like when you are in the position to read slush or something, which I think is also a great experience for all new writers, is that like one of the first things you start looking for, or the stuff that pops out, is like a unique, honest like perspective. And it's, that's always something I want more of from a writer. Is I almost feel like, I'm not there to read a story. I'm there to like intimately connect with another human being, who has their own set of influences, interests, pet peeves, and weird ticks, and I want to know those wholly when I'm reading. So please, like, do your navel gazing. I think this is all inherently narcissistic, but be the narcissist for us at least, and then hopefully treat your family members and friends well.
And then since we're talking about beta readers and getting critiques, that kind of leads into a difficult balance that authors have to maintain, is taking critiques but also protecting your own writing style. So how do, and anyone can jump in, how do you manage to keep that balance of being open to critiques, but also realizing when a critique might be correct, but not applicable to your voice or your writing style?
I can jump in on this one. I think one of the big things is at a certain point as a writer and a storyteller, I think hopefully you gain some confidence in your vision, and that your writing is no longer incidental, it's purposeful. You're making purposeful choices, so that when people highlight things in your document or whatever, you can make those decisions and say, was this a choice that they just don't like my choice, but do I still believe in my choice? I think that's really what it comes down to, is getting to the point in your art that you are sure you're making decisions. It's just not stuff you're putting out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, I think Neil Gaiman in one of his interviews said he was speaking more like in terms of like your writing career, but if there's this mountain that is like the ideal story you're trying to tell, like does that feedback bring you closer to even your vision that you didn't know until they said something, you're like, oh man, that's actually more pure of what I was trying to do? Or if it takes you away from that, it might be good feedback, but it might not be the story you're trying to tell either. So I totally agree.
All right, then let's go to the topic at hand, which is Split Screen Volume 1. Now, I did look it up and I feel like I couldn't find it. When does this come out? Oh, wait. As you say when it comes out, can you hold the book up?
Yeah.
Everyone look.
Ooh, looking good.
Ooh, that cover.
Yeah. This book comes out September 27th.
But are pre-orders available now?
Yep.
Okay, I'll put a link in the description as well, so you should definitely go and grab it. At this point, hopefully you've read my review, which came out the Monday before this interview did, and so you know that you should be buying it. But so anyone can jump in or start this, but so how did this project start? Like, who reached out to who? How are you all connected? Like, did they pitch it? Did Alex headhunt you? Was it a brutal battle? Like, how did this happen?
All of the above. So this whole split screen project has a kind of long history for me, only in that I had the idea a couple years ago and I didn't know if I could ever pull it off. This was before I even had Dreadstone Press, before I started it. And it was, I don't know, it was one of those ideas where I thought, man, I remember those split EP out, like the music out split EPs. And I think at the same time I was looking at a bunch of submission calls and, because I'm a writer, and noticing that there really aren't many places open to novelettes, or, the story that's a little bit too long, but not long enough. And so kind of way back then, I had this thought, well, what if we what if we kind of mash those things? What if we get a couple of stories, put them together in a book that's, long enough that people are going to be willing to buy it. It's a unique experience for the reader, but also importantly for the writer, it's something that, it's a place for those stories. Outside of a personal author collection, there aren't many opportunities to sell them. So that was the idea I had, a couple years ago. And I thought, you know what, I might start a small press to do that. And I did, but it took a while because I needed to kind of get my feet under me and figure out how to be a publisher, because I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing. And I did about a year of flash fiction, which I still do, Dose of Dread series. And then I did an anthology last year, but it was always in the back of my mind, the split screen. And then one day Scott posted something on Twitter about the story he was writing or had written. And I thought, oh, wow, the way he pitched this, I need to know about this. So I reached out to him and said, hey, what's up with the story? How long is it? What plans do you have for it? And I believe he had it submitted out to a couple places, but he's like, yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'll keep in touch, that sort of thing. And then at the beginning of this year, we kind of reconnected on it and decided, I think we should make this one of the stories in this first book, this first split novelette series book. And because of Scott's story, I read it, I loved it. I thought, yeah, let's do this. Let's make this series happen. And then shortly after, I opened a pitch call to fill out the that first book, and then also get a couple more stories for the next one, and read a bunch of manuscripts, and that's where I pulled Carson's from, and kind of the rest is becoming history.
Okay, so you weren't kidding about it actually being a combo of everything I mentioned. That's amazing.
Yeah, seriously,
that was not planned.
Yeah.
Then I guess, Alex, going off of that, how has the publishing side of things been like for you for this? Because you're a relatively new business owner. You're new to the press side of things, having been an author before. How do you feel like your journey has been?
It's been good. It's a lot of work. It's
been good with a little pained laugh, so I'm a little worried for you.
Yes, no. It really has been good, but I am Dreadstone Press. Dreadstone Press is me in terms of staff. It is me, which is fine. That's great, but that means it's basically all on me. Now, I'll say that the slight caveat to that is, with this book, it hasn't been, and that's just a quick shout out to Carson and Scott, and we can maybe get into that later. But really reading submissions, deciding on stories, doing the editing, putting it all together is on me. And I have a day job and a life, and also would like to continue writing, so it just takes a lot of time. And no one ever has enough time, right? So you just kind of do what you can with what you have, and we have, and it's been a process. It's taken some time to get it off the ground, but I'm really, really happy with this first book, and I think the series is going to take off. I really do.
All right, then let's dive into the meat of these two stories. So let's start with Carson. Can you tell us, keep it as spoiler-free as possible since this isn't out yet, but can you tell us a little bit about your story and what's it about?
Sure. It's kind of a cosmic horror noir story about a thug named Byron, who is British American in the early 70s, who is essentially tasked with pulling off a heist that involves a strange occultist named Allosaurus d'Ambrazier.
And what was the title?
The Guts of Myth.
There we go, because the title is really good. And Scott, how about yours?
Yeah, I guess you would consider it maybe like weird horror / fantasy, maybe. It follows an exile who's very ill, kind of hallucinating his dead wife, and he realizes it early on, and anyways, he's propositioned to come back into the fold of this group or what have you if he leads a this mourner who has his family strapped to a mule to a certain destination, and then they will welcome him back into the fold, so to speak. Needless to say, just about everyone has an ulterior motive, and eventually you wonder how reliable, I guess, the protagonist's views are, being that he is growing worse as the story continues in his illness, his hallucinations. So full stop, I guess.
One of the things I thought was interesting when I read your story is that our structures kind of mirror each other a little bit, and that they're kind of like both quest stories,
Yeah.
but they're also very different from each other also.
Yeah, I read yours yesterday, and man, I really dug it.
Oh, thank you, man.
Like Snail and the Noir and the Cosmic Horror. It's just it's a great marriage. It's really good. And Byron, man, so witty. The voice for that character was like outstanding. I was very into it.
Yeah, it's how I wish I sounded in real life. I was reading yours yesterday as well, and I was like so taken in by like just how fucking good of a writer you are. Just like sentence level imagery, like it's just so lyrical and beautiful. Like every sentence, I was like, oh damn, this shit needs to be in a museum. It's so good.
Damn, well, thanks, man. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
Okay, well, let's talk inspiration then. Scott, what inspired your story? Like, what sparked the idea?
Yeah, well, originally, as are most of my longer works I'm finding, it was just like a short story idea. Just like a guy shows up needing to bury his family, and it's not what it seems. That was the idea from the beginning. And then I have a sister that lives in Salt Lake City, so I flew out there to see her, and we like went to the Great Salt Lake and the Salt Flats, and I was like, okay, something is happening in my brain right now. It's just like a very like post-apocalyptic landscape as is over there. And then we had driven to Wendover, which is actually where they tested the atomic bomb in the States. And I was like, this is super eerie. And it just all, I was reading a lot of Brian Ebenstein at the time as well. I think I had just finished my favorite novel by him, Immobility. And it's kind of like almost like a journeying novel as well. And I think that was just, it all culminated, and it just vomited it up one day, I guess.
And Carson?
For me, it kind of came from a couple of big things. So I guess it goes back 5 or 6 years ago. I am known among my friends because I'm the horror guy, that I like to throw elaborate Halloween parties. And one year I decided I wanted to do like a murder mystery type thing. And it was kind of goofy fun, and I wrote up like a lot of like fun flavor text for like people to find around the apartment and shit like that. But one of the funny things to me was I just made up a really silly name, and I was like, oh, our cultist is going to be named Allosaurus, just because I thought that was fucking hilarious. And then it just stuck with me all these years. Parts of that game became a different short story, Zero Boundaries podcast, episode 182, that was adapted by this No Sleep podcast, and one of the shares lore elements with the Guts of Myth. And and then it kind of had that other spare idea of just wanting to like write like a cosmic horror heist thing. I thought it would be fun, combined with my love of hard-boiled noir, Chandler, Hammett, Kane, and all those great movies like Out of the Past and The Maltese Falcon. It just, everything came together at the right moment, and it just came out of me.
So we kind of touched upon this. Alex spoke on this before. So Alex, you reached out when Scott made a tweet about his. So Scott, I'm assuming yours was already pretty much written. And then Alex, you had an open call, and that's when you found Carson. Now, Carson, did you already have yours written, or was it a query?
Yeah, it was already written. I had it. It was, it was just kind of great luck somebody was looking for something at the right length that I had one loaded up. I think, you know, I did another round or so of edits when I saw the call, but I was pretty much ready to go.
Then, so to me as a reader, I felt like they both fit perfectly together, like red wine and steak. It felt like to me when I read it, I was like, they must have worked together somehow to kind of get the same like vibe almost. I hate when people say that. Yeah, the story has a great vibe. What does that even mean? I don't know. But Alex, so you obviously selected Carson's already knowing, like having read Scott's, like, but how, like, what made you choose to pair them? Like out of all the queries I'm assuming you got for your open call.
That's a great question. It was intentional. Full disclosure, there was a different story that was supposed to go with Scott's originally, and then that didn't pan out for a couple of reasons. But I had already known that I wanted Carson's story. Like I knew it. I mean, from the first couple of pages, I knew I wanted it. So I'd actually had his lined up for book 2, and I am so glad that I was able to pull it up to book 1 and pair these two. And I thought about it a lot, and that was part of the part of the struggle with like the pitch call and reading manuscripts. I had to reject a couple that were really, really great, but I just didn't really have a good match for it, or it didn't really fit quite this unknown vibe I was looking for. And
The
but
vibe.
yeah, right. But reading them, and just thinking, would these go together? And they're so different, but yeah, there's something that connects them, and it really feels like a nice like double feature. Your double feature isn't the same movie twice. It's two different movies that feel like they belong together, and I got that when I was reading these.
So obviously this is volume 1. You've spoken briefly that you have a volume 2. Are you planning to do just an ongoing series of these? Do you have a set number in mind?
Yeah, so volume 2 is set to release in November 15th. It's a pretty quick turnaround, just because it took a little bit longer to get this first one out than I originally intended. But so it goes as you learn the process and figure out how to make everything go in the publishing world. But yeah, so book 2 is as of this weekend ready to go in terms of reviews and blurbs. I just finished that up, so that's coming on quick. I will be opening again for pitches in February of next year, with the intention of at least doing volume 3 and 4. I think from here on out, I'll kind of do it a year at a time and just see how it goes. I am hopeful. I do think that this will do well, and provided that it does, I'm just going to keep doing it. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think they are unique experience, again, for both writers and readers. And I think as long as people read the books, I'm going to keep doing it. There's no reason not to. I'll probably just do 2 a year until I can't.
I think this is such a great way to deliver this length of story, because oftentimes I might be in the minority, but I feel like having like a big chunky novella or a novelette during a collection or anthology, it always kind of, for me, it just stops the pace dead in its tracks. But I love just like the double feature, and I would love to read more stories of this length in this format.
Yeah, I'm really, in my introduction to the book, I do compare it to like a movie double feature. And if you think about the time required to read the stories, it is very similar. Not that these stories are movies or even need to be. They're obviously very different mediums, but you could sit down on a Friday night, and you could, in the amount of time it would take you to watch a couple movies in like a double feature format, you could read these 2 stories, and I think it would be a hell of a ride.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so again, Alex, if you want to hold up the book. I had a digital arc, so I can't, but I can Photoshop one in. Ooh, split screen Volume 1. You can get it for pre-order now. Link is in the description below. And keep an eye out for the upcoming volumes. The next one, you said February?
November.
November. February is when you're opening up for the next call. See, all
Yep.
the months in my brain. I just can't get them right. But yeah, so definitely check it out and keep an eye out on Alex's website, which I'll also put the press website in his bio info below in case you're a writer and you want to submit, you want to be part of this really cool project. I can definitely vouch. I really enjoyed it. I did read it all in one night because I enjoyed it so much. They're both very different. Like they vibe well. There's that word again. They vibe well, but they're both different enough that I didn't feel, again, like I was consuming the same thing twice. It just felt like a natural progression between stories. And yeah, so let's talk about future projects. Now, Alex, you can answer this as a press or a writer. What are you working on right now?
So in terms of Dreadstone Press, obviously Split Screen is the big thing that I'm working on. And, you know, I don't know that I see myself doing much else, at least for now. Just, again, I don't have a ton of time to devote, you know, all of my resources to publishing. I wish I could devote more, but I also do really like being a writer and I want to continue doing that. But Split Screen is the big thing going forward. And then we do twice monthly flash fiction, horror fiction. And I plan to keep doing that for probably forever. But yeah, so in terms of writing, I'm going to self-publish a novella, and that's going to come out in January. I don't have a whole lot of details on that yet because things are kind of in the works behind scenes, but yeah, my first book with my name on it will be out in January of 2023.
Well, congrats.
Thank you.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then Carson, how about you?
I've a lot of things in the works and like none of them I'm about to talk about yet, but I will say vaguely I have a shared collection coming out at some point, 2 separate novellas, a short story and an anthology. And the one thing I can talk about is I was just added to the table of contents for the anthology of The Devil's Rejects. They're releasing like a new edition with a couple extra authors. I'm one of the extra authors. So I have a story about the DC emo core scene in there. That's also a story. I'm a huge punk nerd, so that one's kind of close to my heart.
And Scott?
Yeah. Well, currently I'm finishing up a novella, or I say that, but I probably have like another 10,000 words. But I guess while keeping my cards sort of close, I guess trope-wise, it deals with like, you know, ghosts, the haunted house, possession type area, although it's a revenge story and the possession is consensual. And I guess that's all I'll really say for now. And yeah, I've got a story I just sold to, I can't really talk about it either, not to be that guy or like Carson, but you know how it goes. Like
this is like when people tweet and they're like vague acceptance tweet.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn it, I want to know.
Exactly, but yeah, I will say it's
Y'all are the worst.
Yeah, we are. It's a podcast market that I've been trying to break into for, I think I started doing this at like 25. So I guess the last 7 years, and they bought a reprint, which is like outstanding. It like made my day. But I can't really say much.
I have a guess, and I'm very happy for you.
Oh,
I also really want that one. And I'm glad I'm not the only one who has stuff that they can't talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of nice in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Well, then, either way, it sounds like all 3 of you are doing well. So congrats. It's always good to hear.
Sure.
And yes, I will be putting all their websites in the description below so you can stalk them for their announcements on these super secret projects that they just hint about. They come onto my Plim Talk show and they just hint about it and give me nothing. But yes, I always end with a little surprise question. So I hope you're prepared. I feel like Carson's like, oh no. He knows me. But okay, you guys can jump in whatever order you want. This is very serious. It's a very epic question that will rock your world. But what is your favorite food and why is it mac and cheese? Go.
I like mac and cheese all right, but it's never gonna be as good as like a nice carne asada burrito, or just some fine pizza. But I also have the taste buds of like a 4-year-old.
If it was a 4-year-old, you would like mac and cheese, so that doesn't actually make sense.
I was a 4-year-old raised by taco trucks.
Okay, there you go. Alex, I saw you smiling.
Mine is mac and cheese.
Yes, finally.
Okay.
Thank you. Of all the guests, you're the first one to actually be like, yes, it is actually mac and cheese. Do you put
Yeah.
ketchup on it?
That's foul.
No, I
Okay, in my defense, Canadians love ketchup. It's just us. So I grew up with Kraft Dinner and my mom would
Oh,
put
yeah.
little ketchup smiles on it. It was a thing and I can never let that go.
Hot sauce actually is pretty good on mac and cheese. That's
just ketchup with a bite. Yeah, proved my point, Carson. Thank you. So Alex, what's your like favorite type of mac and cheese? Like what all goes in it?
I'm pretty basic, like not like craft basic, but
You just
you know,
called
like-
me basic? We
Well,
come on to my show.
I did, you're right.
Call her out.
I mean, I make,
wow, the saucy guests you bring to me, Carson. How
Yeah.
dare.
although I
This
say
is gonna
that,
be
I
all
just
over
had-
Twitter.
I just had that for lunch, actually. It was my son's leftover, so I had that for
There
lunch.
you go.
But,
Way to
basic
assert
too, though.
dominance.
Yeah, there you go. Just direct eye contact while you're eating it.
Yeah, like
This wasn't yours, was it?
so are you like the triple cheese, crumble on top, maybe
yeah.
some pulled pork, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. Yep.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
classic. I will say if it's like properly like high quality mac and cheese, I don't put ketchup on it. It's just Kraft Dinner, which kind of does need a little extra if we're being real.
I gotta say, one of the like best things about the proliferation of brew pubs across America is like there's like gourmet mac and cheese everywhere
Yes,
now. It's
everywhere.
insane. You can just get like the best mac and cheese like anywhere you go.
Oh yeah. In Baltimore, they do crab meat with mac and cheese, and it's like outstanding.
That's
Oh shit, that sounds good.
Old Bay all over the place. It's amazing.
Go Ravens.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, Scott, why is your favorite food mac and cheese?
Well, plot twist, it isn't. I'm actually of the school of thought of Carson. I literally I meal prep kind of boring stuff through the week, and every goddamn weekend I'm getting burritos.
Yes.
That's like
Team
my
burrito
habit.
over there. Got it.
Okay. If you're ever over here, we're getting some burritos.
Oh, and likewise.
Yes. Awesome.
That's like desert island food. Granted, it's a lot of stuff combined. I know it's sort of cheating, but like that's
Oh, so good.
Okay,
Maybe
well,
later.
thank you everyone. And again, viewers, check down the description below. All the links are there. Pre-order a copy of Split Scream Volume 1. You should. It's definitely an amazing double feature. And support your small indie businesses. Check out Alex's personal and business websites, Dreadstone Press. Check them out. They're doing amazing work, unique stuff. And I'll see you for the next interview. And thanks for joining, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.